Let's talk about those deep sleepers. This is where we really dig deep, try to find those people that you've maybe never heard of or you have heard of, and we think this is going to be the time where they break out. Subscribe to our channel and get our cheat sheet. Go to our site, get our updated rankings. Things will be changing as spring training goes on. There's a link in there. Click right here. You can get there in any number of ways. Who's our number one, or who's our first?
Well, I'm going to talk about Javier Baez to start of the Chicago Cubs. Playing second base, but the problem is he ain't playing that every day, so that's why he's on a deep sleeper list. But as Dustin and I were talking prior to the show, he's probably the best player in the big leagues that doesn't already have an everyday job. So the Cubs are trying to figure out how they can use him. They got Ben Zobrist at second, but Castro's gone. They talked about in winter ball, him playing a little bit of outfield, but this kid's got a lot of potential, a lot of pop, had ridiculous minor league stats, so he's definitely a guy to be targeted in deeper drafts with the hopes that something happens where he's getting a lot more playing time.
They got to do something with him. I mean, he can play middle infield maybe. I mean, Russell's out there. It's just, I want to see this guy get some at-bats. I hope they figure something out. Nick Castellanos is a guy I want to talk about with Detroit. Only 24 years old. Here's a guy, you probably heard his name. He's been around for a couple years. I'm going to say it. You know I like me some doubles, and I love extra base hits in general. He doesn't have the most pop, but I think there's certainly some potential there. Over 50 extra base hits for this guy last year. You know, I think he's definitely a great third baseman to target, second third baseman to target, to give you some depth at that position, maybe even some trade value if he breaks out.
Here's another guy at third base to target, and that's Matt Duffy of San Francisco. This guy's not, he doesn't have 40 home run potential or 30 bag potential or anything crazy like that, but what he can do is help you just across the board. It's very realistic for him to bat 300 with 15 bombs, 15 bags, 80, 90 runs, RBIs. He could just be very solid across the board, and you can get him at a highly discounted value on draft day.
Katell Marte is our next guy, Seattle shortstop. Obviously tough position to fill. You're always looking for the next guy that could come in and have some value. He's not going to hit for power, but I think he can give you some solid speed and a nice average. And he's just, this is a late round guy. You're not going to really be going crazy over this guy, but again, a great second positional player to add to your team for some bench that could have some value.
All right, I'm going to move over to starting pitcher, and I'm going to talk about the Mets starting pitcher, Steven Matz. And the thing about Matz last year, in 6 starts, he had about a 2.2 ERA, a 1.2 whip, about a K per inning. So he's just solid across the board, but it was only 6 starts. So the thing is, how many innings is he really going to get this year? He's going to be in the rotation. The Mets are talking. They're seeing him as around 200 innings this year. So he's going to certainly be in the rotation. And with those numbers, if he builds on them, the rich get richer. It looks like the Mets might have another very, very solid starting pitcher. And hopefully you do on your fantasy team as well.
Their rotation's just
silly.
Unreal. A.J. Reed, very interesting young player. I mean, here's one of those situations where is he going to be at the beginning of the year? We're not really sure if he has a starting job locked up, so he is a name you need to learn, remember if you haven't heard of him. Watch him during spring training, see what's going to happen. First baseman for the Astros. He was arguably the best hitter in the minors last year, and they're going to need to try to get this guy some at-bats, but obviously it needs to make sense for the team. So keep an eye on him, see what happens in spring training, but he could be a nice late-round guy.
Okay, next guy I'm talking about is JT Realmuto. And the thing about him is he is a catcher, and a catcher is not the deepest of positions. So, late in drafts, I don't like to reach for a catcher by any means, so I really use my tiering, but if I don't get one of the top guys, typically I'm waiting. And JT's the kind of player that I really like to grab. He's younger, he's shown a lot of promise, he has some pop in his bat, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about him not as a deep sleeper, even a sleeper next year, but as just a solid catcher for you to take.
I got an exciting young outfielder for you, center fielder for Atlanta, Ender Inciarte. Here's a guy that has the potential to do it all. I mean, he's certainly a guy I'm going to be targeting in all of my leagues. Out of most of the guys on this list, I think he's definitely, towards the top in terms of guys that will probably have value this year and have one of the higher ceilings in my opinion. I mean, he's certainly a guy, again, that has potential to do it all. So keep a very close eye on him during spring training. He might be a guy you want to grab.
Okay, my last guy I'm talking about is Jake Lamb, third base for Arizona. And the thing about Jake Lamb is there's a little bit of name recognition there, so obviously has a little bit of pedigree. There's been buzz before, but for good reason. The kid certainly has the power, and he did it. He was great in the minor league, so it's one of those things. How long is it going to take him to transition into majors? I think he is going to be a solid fantasy asset, maybe this year, maybe in future years, but that's why he's on the deep sleeper list, because it could happen in 2016.
Lots of doubles.
Lots of doubles.
The last guy we're going to talk about, Tampa Bay outfielder Mikey Moore. Mikey, there we go. I like that. Here's a guy, you look at his numbers, they're not going to blow you away. But the thing I like about him is you can look at the progression as he's slowly getting better. He's had success in college, and he has had success in the minors. It's just not going to blow you away. But I think the potential is certainly there. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but again, this is deep sleepers, guys to start getting on your radar, start paying attention to them, watch them in spring training, see what happens. But that is our list. Get onto the website if you got questions. Subscribe to our channel, like the video.
Check out the
our
cheat sheet.
social media.
Follow us on Twitter.
Like us on Facebook too. We like those. We
like
like being
everything.
liked.
Give a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Por favor. Sorry.